London with Robby, who is the CEO of Animoca Brands. It's a gaming software development company and as well a VC firm valued at $5.4 billion. So it's a unicorn and they have a portfolio of companies at $1.5 billion. Great to have you here, Robby.
Thank you. It's really nice to see you.
So can you tell us about your background and how did you get into gaming and how did you get into blockchain industry?
Sure. So I started off in the game business about 10 years ago. So I had been personal friends with Yat, who is the co-founder of Animoca Brands, for many years, back since the early internet days in the mid 90s. And so once I sold my last business, which was a media company, I contacted Yat because he had just started in the mobile game business, and I thought this was a really interesting field, which I'd never been in gaming before, but I'd been in technology and internet and mobile. And so I contacted him and ended up joining the business about 10 years ago. So I spent a lot of time helping to build that business as a mobile free-to-play studio for the first 5 years before we even discovered blockchain.
So what was the year when you discovered blockchain, crypto? What was your first
Sure.
impression? Why did you see the trend in it?
So this was the we started to really take notice of it in the summer of 2017. That was like the ICO summer, right? And for us, it sort of, we had a couple of different ideas. On the one hand, obviously blockchain was becoming much more popular as a consumer concept. On the second hand, we got a chance to meet a group that was doing a hackathon project at the time to think about making a game using blockchain, and that company was called Axiom Zen, and they later rebranded as Dapper Labs. And so we joined them on this hackathon project of theirs, which was called CryptoKitties. So we became the publisher of CryptoKitties in Greater China, and that was our first blockchain project and cooperation, and we learned so much from them. Obviously, they're really the masters in this industry, like they invented the NFT,
Yeah.
So and so we learned a lot from them, and through that partnership it got us really inspired to dig deeper into like what does it mean to think about putting blockchain in games, like as an industry.
And during bear markets, actually till probably 2021, there was not much hype around NFTs. Probably like everybody forgot after the hype of CryptoKitties. Were you still developing anything in that space in blockchain gaming?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's one of those things. Like we have a relatively well-known project called the Sandbox, and I get asked by a lot of people how the process of building the Sandbox and getting it to a place where it's attracted a lot of attention. And I always tell them the reason is because actually we've been working on it and the team has been working on it for a very long time. So we started building the blockchain version of the Sandbox. The planning was in that summer of 2017, but then we really built it during 2018 and 2019. And most importantly, from a Web3 aspect, we started building the community from 2018. So we started, building our online community through Discord, etc., and also engaging with creators because it's a UGC platform. So it's really important that we onboard creators to help build amazing content. And so we started a creator fund at that time to seed the community, to encourage creators to start building with our voxel editor. So actually all the content that you see now in season 2 of the Sandbox has been in development for many years actually.
And did the word Metaverse used in that time or no?
So I think we didn't really use the term Metaverse. I mean, to be honest, the first time I heard the term was almost 25 years ago because I read the book Snow Crash when it came out, and some friends and I made a small angel investment in a company started by some friends of mine, and they had an ambition at that time, this was 1997, to build the Metaverse. Because, like many things, we're inspired by science fiction, and so the idea was to create this online world where you could be an avatar and it would be three-dimensional, etc. It was very much too early, but I think that was the first time we started using the word. But I think until Web3 came along, we didn't really have the tools to actually build a metaverse. Now we have the tools.
And now we see as well a bear market, so the interest generally to crypto is quite diminished.
Yes.
Do you still see that interest in crypto gaming? Is it the same, or is it less, or is
Sure.
it still growing?
I think there are two trends at play. One is that gaming and entertainment generally tends to be counter-cyclical from financial markets. People always like to play games, and especially when the economy is not good, often people watch more TV or play more games or have some kind of escape because their jobs are more difficult, right? But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that the blockchain game industry is not the same as the fintech crypto industry. So actually the price of crypto doesn't have very much effect on people's interest in playing games that use blockchain inside.
And as well, actually, we see some interest from big gaming publishers in implementing NFTs and blockchain, but still, a lot of their employees are not really keen on NFTs. So why is it happening?
Sure, I think that mainly it's an education process. So I think that the idea of how we use NFTs, playable NFTs in games, is actually much more complicated than it might seem on the surface. At first you think, okay, so all my in-game assets, I'll just make them into NFTs, and then you can have an in-game marketplace and people can trade stuff in the game, and that's it. It's actually much more complicated because the way that free-to-play games have made money for the last 15 years has been through this hyperinflationary in-game economy. The game is built as a walled garden where you bring in users through a user acquisition funnel and try to keep as many users as possible because you only make money from a very small percentage of them, so you have to lock them into your environment. And in blockchain games, because people have ownership of their digital property, and we get a royalty stream basically from all of the trading that happens of all those creator fees of all the NFTs we create, we don't need to trap them in our environment. So the economy design of a game is completely different, and in fact to a traditional game developer it looks crazy. And so it's very difficult for them to get their heads around why this very open model would work and would be better than the one that they're used to, because it's a big change and people often are, it's difficult to change, especially if something you've been doing has been working really well for a long time. It's difficult to embrace change. So I think we as an industry have the burden of this education process to be able to share with the traditional game industry why doing it this way actually might be better for them in the long run.
So how do you see the future of gaming? Will in the future all games be on blockchain? Will all games be free to play or play to earn games?
So I think that all games will involve blockchain technology because I think that all games should have player ownership, because gaming has moved from being premium to free to play, and now that most games are free to play, it's about what you spend in the game and enhancing your experience. And with that economic model, people need to own what they have. The fact that we don't own stuff in games right now actually is fundamentally wrong. It's just that we're accustomed to that model, so we don't recognize it as being wrong yet. So I think that will change over time, and so ownership and blockchain being the foundation of that ownership will be here to stay. I think though that the play to earn aspect, I think will be less important. I think the idea though will be that you will be able to play, and the things you play with have value. I think the idea of the extreme end of that, meaning I'm going to make a living and this is my only job is to play games, that's a very extreme example. I think the majority of the market will just be able to play games and not actually lose so much money. Meaning, just like when you buy a console game and you get a CD or a DVD, you can resell that DVD on a secondhand market and get something back when you're finished playing. You recycle it, basically. Now we have a way to recycle our digital content so that when I'm tired of playing this game, because maybe I don't want to play this game forever, I can take my digital stuff and I can sell them to somebody else. Maybe I get less than what I paid, but I get something. And that's a really important fundamental shift for our industry, because at the moment, people get nothing. So I think when players have a choice between getting something back versus nothing, they will always choose something.
And are you a gamer yourself?
I am, but I'm a casual gamer, to be honest.
So do you test all the games you invest into?
I do, but I'm not a very good player. So I test them, but I'm not the best judge. We have a lot of really passionate gamers who help us with all our testing.
And you have quite a lot of companies in your portfolio, but still probably those companies are known only to gamers, not to the wide crypto community. So can you tell more, like what are the most exciting games for you?
Sure. So I think
as well you have a lot of racing games.
we do. So obviously the Sandbox is the most high profile, which is a UGC platform. And then we have our Rev Racing ecosystem. So we have games, we just launched our new MotoGP game, so for motorcycle superbike fans. We have Formula E. We now have our Torque Drift title coming out of our studio in Melbourne, Australia. And so those are a bunch of unique racing properties. And then in addition, I'm very excited about two AAA games that we have coming out at the moment. So one is called Phantom Galaxies. This is a space-themed, imagine Transformer Gundam-style robots in space, having battles, and it's real, AAA quality, but for PC, desktop. So that's very exciting. That's in soft launch already. And then the other one is called Life Beyond, which comes from our studio in France. And this is, again, a AAA experience of colonizing a new world. And I think I'm hoping that these kind of really rich, immersive game experiences with high fidelity graphics will start to appeal to more traditional gaming audiences when they see a level of quality that's more familiar to what they're accustomed to in traditional games as opposed to blockchain games, but with the benefit of an ownership economy inside the game.
Yeah, so what are your investment criteria? How
Sure.
do you define whether to invest into this game or not, and into which stages do you invest?
Sure. So our investment strategy, we run as a strategic investment strategy because we invest off our balance sheet. And so every kind of company that we invest in, we like to have a strategic relationship with them. We're not a pure financial investor. So we cooperate with them to, help them, like if it's a traditional game company, we help them on their journey to Web3. We can help them with tokenomics and help them with thinking through game design in this new Web3 economic design. And then at the same time, we can also work to interoperate content with them because many game projects, can benefit, as can we, from interoperating playable NFTs. So we can interoperate with the Sandbox or Phantom Galaxies or any one of our other titles and work to try to do marketing and community sharing events together, and that's really important, I think, in Web3. Our investment size varies. I'd say most of the things we invest in are probably anywhere from very small, because we don't mind too small or too early, up to, on average, probably about $5 million.
And you as well have acquisition strategy too. Like,
Yes.
I've seen the news that Animoca Brands acquired for $38 million TinyTap educational library company. So why, what's your interest in acquiring other
Sure.
companies? And,
Sure.
Can you tell more about this?
So in terms of our own M&A strategy, it's usually to acquire, obviously, great teams because you want to work with fantastic people, but also to acquire companies that have teams that have special, that they're experts in certain kinds of areas, game genres, or in the case of TinyTap, in education, in sectors that we want to grow our business to, because we have a very public strategy to grow by M&A in these areas. Because I think one thing about the game and entertainment industry is that each different type of game genre is quite unique. You need to have experts who've really been making those kind of games for years and understand how to build community and what appeals to people about that kind of content category. So we try to acquire studios that are that are experts in particular content categories.
Yeah, and what's the meaning of education in games?
Sure.
A lot of games are just fun to play, but
Yes.
it's more like on the entertainment side. So how is it important to build more educational games where kids can learn something via
Sure.
gaming?
So I think education fits our strategy in two different ways. On the one hand, there is some overlap with gaming. So there is the gamification of education. So you can make education more fun by adding elements of what we know about gameplay, you know, reward, and blockchain is perfect for this. So you can create retention and reward mechanisms, you can create, you know, an educational version of leaderboards so that kids compete with each other to learn exciting stuff and make the journey of learning more fun. And I think that's part of our interest in education. And then the second part is that obviously education is a fantastic area for blockchain development generally. And although we are a gaming and entertainment company, we're also a blockchain company, and our interest is in, you know, bringing the whole world to blockchain, because we think this is an important way to upgrade and enhance the internet, essentially. And so education is a great vector for onboarding large audiences into blockchain.